You're listening to Heritage Radio Network.
There are a lot of things to love about Palomo Mezcal Artisanal. My friend, Carlos Mendez Blas, makes Palomo Mezcal by cooking his agaves underground, milling those cooked agaves with a horse-pulled stone wheel, fermenting that in open-air wooden barrels, and distilling it in wood-fired copper pot stills, the same way his great-great-grandparents made it more than a century ago. You'll also love it because it tastes like it was made more than a century ago. It tastes like history. So reach back in time and grab a bottle of Palomo Mezcal Artisanal. Great in cocktails, great on its own.
Hey, Gringex Chicagoans. I'm Linda from Cena Secreto. If you are in the neighborhood, you should look up Cena Secreto on Instagram. See if I'm hosting any dinners or tastings upcoming. Can't wait to see ya. Seyna Secreto. Secret with an O.
Agave Road trip. Agave Road trip.
I'm Lou Bank.
And I'm Dave Dyrick, retired farmer from Leaning Shed Farm.
And this is Agave Road Trip, the critically acclaimed award-winning podcast that helps Gringex bartenders better understand agave spirits, and rural Mexico, which is kind of where you are right now. Is that correct, Dave?
Well, I don't know if I'd call it rural. I'm on a little island off of Cancun. So is that rural? Not really.
No.
You know, there's over 1.5 million people in Cancun and maybe about 20,000 on this island. So,
and actually, if you've got pickleball courts, and I know you do,
we do. Three of them.
That's not rural. But you're in Mexico.
Yes, I am, and it's warm and sunny here.
Oh, that's lovely. So, you know, did I WhatsApp? You know, I texted you about this because I wanted to talk with you about Mexico.
I'm the guy if you want to.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So Mexico has been purchasing something in the neighborhood of $3 billion of corn annually from farmers in the USA. And the vast majority of that corn has been grown from genetically modified seeds. Now, the Mexican government, I don't know if you're following this, Dave, but the Mexican government announced back in 2020 that they would, in either 2024 or 2025, ban that GMO corn from the country, and that was found to be in violation of the USMCA agreement of 2018. That all happened just a few months ago. So now the Mexican government has amended their constitution to identify native corn as an element of national identity. And the plan is to ban GMO corn from being planted in the country. And then the amendment goes on to say any other use of genetically modified corn must be evaluated to be free of threats to the biosecurity, health, and biocultural heritage of Mexico and its population. So I'm wondering, Dave, you know, what all of this means exactly for farmers in Mexico, for the environment of the Americas. And based on the text you sent me, for the price of tacos.
Right. It all comes down to money, whether it's a tortilla or $1 million farm equipment. I think that's awesome that Mexico wants to do that for their national heritage and really even national food security. To protect their, I think they have 18, 19 different kinds of heritage corn that Mexico produces. With that said, yes, the price probably of everyday items for the regular Joe or Jose in this case, it is going to go up. It has to go up, you know, because these heritage varieties, and some of them have really awesome, unique tastes, textures. Looks to them. They're heritage varieties for a reason. At one point, this is what they had, and they year to year they would take the best seed from it, and they had a really good crop. And then all of a sudden, you have how many million people in Mexico, how many billion people in the world. So it's kind of like for the small farmer, I think they're going to have a great go at it. They're going to make some money because they're growing these varieties right now, and they have niche markets. But as far as like supplying the masses, the Bimbo bread corporation in Mexico, the Kellogg's Corn Flakes, that kind of stuff, which is in Mexico also, that is going to really wind up costing a lot more money for the regular person. And it's not always all about money, not everything, but this is, the regular person who wakes up and goes to work every day. It kind of is in the forefront of their life, certainly.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've got this quote I want to share to that point. This quote I want to share from Dr. Hector Ortiz. He's the scientist, and we've had him on the show a few times, who works over at the Chicago Botanic Garden. So, Roy, can you run that quote?
Yeah, there's a dichotomy, and I think it's hidden in the microscopic view of the inner workings of agriculture. But there's this dichotomy between the suffering of farmers in Mexico, and then you walk into any grocery store in Chicago, and that's all you see is grown in Mexico. And it gives you this impression that, there's this booming agricultural sector. But, the truth, obviously, when they're buying more corn from the USA than we're consuming here ourselves, it's this hidden truth that,
The other thing is, what are we sending, outside? It's being, people like us, we've seen how we send the best out of the country. We remain in the level, like a less quality, but we send in the best outside. And then we return it, we buy more from outside to supply what's the demand in the country. And that's the case of corn. And it's we're receiving this from outside. Can we produce it in the country? And the question, big question but what have we done to stimulate that,
Well, there's a reason why they're importing that much corn from, in this case, the United States. It could be from anywhere, because obviously somewhere else, meaning the U.S., could grow it cheaper and have a good quality product, I guess. If you don't consider the GMO thing, if it bothers you, and there's good arguments for both sides of GMOs being terrible, GMOs being good. I really, it's a coin flip with me. There's
really
that can. Oh yeah, really. Really. And I grew. You asked me to grow some. I think it was a blue or a green corn one year for a friend of yours.
Yeah, Oaxacan green corn. Yeah, it was great.
And I did, and I wasn't a big, I was a small farmer. I did mostly markets and sold to fancy, excellent restaurants in Chicago. So it's not like I had 1,000 acres of any one thing. I think the most thing I grew of was 6 acres of tomatoes and an acre of squash, that kind of stuff. Small kind of farming that got picked ripe and sold within 48 hours and consumed probably within 24 hours of that.
Yeah.
So that's my. I grew a little bit of sweet corn too, not a lot, but I would grow the main season sweet corn, and what a difference in production. Maybe I had, I don't know, a dozen 800-foot rolls of your corn and a dozen of the sweet corn, and it was triple, quadruple the amount of production in the hybrid or GMO. Really, 98% of the corn, 95% is all GMOs in the U.S.
So the sweet corn that you were growing, not the green Oaxacan corn that I asked you to grow, but the sweet corn that you were growing was GMO?
It was GMO, and I was an heirloom. Our farm, we specialized in heirloom varieties of everything.
I'm just going to put a pin in that for a second. Hang on, because one of my great joys was tasting through 28 different kinds of tomatoes that you'd have every summer?
Believe it or not, it was close to 80 varieties a year. We had 33 varieties of cherry tomatoes and the rest in the bigs.
And the
And,
chilies and the different chilies that you would grow.
Correct. And actually, when we first met, I grew this funky melon from Africa. I
Yeah.
forget the name of it, and it
Yeah.
looked so beautiful. And it only produced a couple of, maybe a half a dozen fruit. And you were the one who took a chance, and I put a high price on it. You bought it, and I said, "Hey, Mister, I didn't know you at the time. If you don't like it, come back, tell me, and I'll give you something else. I'll give you your money back." And yeah, you said it was beautiful, but it didn't really taste like anything. So I gave you something else. And that was the beginning of it's probably 17-year relationship now that we have.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm.
So you would grow GMO, even though you did all this other heirloom stuff.
That's really the only thing GMO that I grew was the corn. And I only grew a main season corn. With everything nowadays, we're all so spoiled in the United States and maybe other places in the world also. We get what we want any time of year. It doesn't matter what kind of fruit or vegetable it is. And so they start stretching seasons, early corn, late corn, same thing with peaches. There used to be maybe a month you would get the best peaches in the universe in August. And now you can get them in the end of June through September. And quite honestly, the best ones are still the August ones. Yes, you can get peaches for 4 or 5 more months, but they're nowhere close to the original, what a peach was meant to be, or a tomato meant to be, or in this case, corn.
Yeah, no, I hear that. So I want to jump now into a quote that I have from somebody else who's been on the show many times, Chef Gustavo Romero from Nixta in Minneapolis, because I think it speaks to what you're saying about peaches being peachy in the right time period, but then also some of what Hector's saying. So, Roy, can you drop that?
We are importing about a ton of corn every month. And then we're processing through nixtamalization. We're making tortilla and masa. We have a masa program in the restaurant. And then we're providing tortillas to local restaurants and local stores. Now we are in a couple stores in Wisconsin, some stores in the Dakotas. But I think that's our limit. Like that's how far we're gonna go. The reason we're not putting anything in our tortillas. So now we vacuum seal them, we freeze them. The stores slack them to sell, and you have 1 week to use it. If you don't use it in a week, tortillas are done. It's just like you buy a fresh baguette instead of like a Wonder Bread from the store. You buy your baguette, you have about a week before it becomes a rock, and then that's it. Like that's what you get. That's the way that we always trying to sell our tortillas. That's the way it should be. That's the way food should be.
It sounds like a wonderful life to me. It really does, And you look at like the grocery store that's in our neighborhood. They have, like 100 boxes of different tortillas every day. And if you go there in the morning, they're all warm and feeling great and tasty and soft. And you go there by 5, 6, 7 o'clock at night, you're kind of getting a little crusty around the edges. And it's a one-day product. A lot of things are a one-day, a baguette and, bakery is a one-day deal. So, the flavor is there. Probably the nutrition even is there the way this guy is making it in Minneapolis. But you got a short shelf life. You can only supply a couple small areas or stores around him. And that's the problem that we have in this billions and billions of people on this planet.
Yeah.
So what do? Do we feed the masses for cheaper costs? And GMOs, there's so many good things about them, but yet there's so many unknowns about them also.
Yeah.
You tell me, Lou, what's your gut feeling on it? I know you wanted it from me, but I'm curious as to you because you're pretty hip about the food that you put in your body.
Well, I have to be because I've got, I've got heart issues and I'm gluten intolerant. But now I think, frankly, like I think I'm not gluten intolerant. I think I'm glyphosate intolerant. And yeah, and so the GMOs, you don't get the glyphosate with the corn, I think, as much. But I think that's why I can't eat wheat. That's why I can't eat rye and I can't eat oats, is because the glyphosate that they use on these GMO agricultural products. And so, from that standpoint, I'm against it, but I'm also like mindful of exactly what you're saying, that we can point to GMOs as a problem or the problem, whichever one you want to make it. But I think the bigger problem is we're a growing population that consumes, and our consumption doesn't recognize the reach that it has. It doesn't recognize that, I had this conversation with our friend Tracy the other day, a couple hours ago, about the amount of work she would put into growing Huitlacoche, which was significant and difficult. And I didn't know that. And I'm friends with her, and I'd just buy it and I'd go off, and sometimes I'd use it and sometimes I wouldn't. And so I see the benefits of it if we want to keep our population from starving to death. But at the same time, I'm really nervous about the GMOs replacing these heirloom corns.
Yeah, that can't happen, and that shouldn't happen in anything really. But that would be, in my view, the end of civilization. Yeah. People talk about losing their internet or even water. Water is a huge thing, but when you have one or two or three companies controlling all the food that this planet eats, that's huge. That's scary to even think about something like that.
Yeah, and and the idea that if you want to grow corn in the USA that is not GMO corn. The figure I got, the data I got was that you have to be a mile away from any other cornfield that could be growing GMO corn because of the way the pollination works with corn. And while you think you're growing heirloom corn or non-GMO corn, I guess I would say, you think you are, but then you've got that pollen coming from almost a mile away that will infect your crop. And then the next seeds that you get will be literally a trademark infringement against Monsanto.
Well, so the crop that you get that year will be crossed with the GMOs, so it won't be true to what you think you're growing. And so when Monsanto or Pioneer, there's another one, Syngenta. Anyway, they grow fields, thousands of acres of corn just for seed, not for anything else but for seed. And those fields are isolated. Those are the ones that are miles away from anything else that could cross with them. But I've heard stories over the years where there was a regular farmer, let's say like me, trying to grow some Oaxacan green dent corn, and his neighbor, a mile away, it could be 100 yards away, his corn crossed with the innocent farmer, little guy's corn, and Monsanto sued him. Well, I kind of looked into that, and I think those stories are mostly false, actually. Yeah, and I ran with that for a while because I heard that years ago, and I believed it, and I really kind of looked into it, and it turns out that probably is not true.
It also makes me wonder, because you just said you grew like 12 rows of GMO corn right next to the 12 rows or whatever it was of the Oaxacan green.
Not next to it.
They were not a mile away.
No, not a mile away. No, They were maybe a quarter of a mile, I would say.
Drew, how long ago do you think you grew that corn for me?
Oh, God. I retired in 2018, so I'm going to say 2015 or 15, I'm going to say, somewhere right around 10 years ago.
I still have a dozen cobs. Swear to God,
Well,
I still have a dozen dried cobs of that, which also, so I'm all in favor of consuming things as local as possible, right? And even Chef Gustavo, who I've nothing but admiration for, suggests that you should do that. But he also, at the same time, says he's bringing in a ton of corn every month, dried corn that can travel. And so I don't think it's as simple as always get things locally. I think there's sort of a point to preservation that can also help us. Preserving food can help us preserve our species.
definitely, and a lot more food than corn. Even though corn is a big, I believe the Mexican population definitely eats a hell of a lot more corn than we do in the U.S. Just for the fact of all the masa, the tortillas that they consume. So
Well,
it might be 10 times the amount that we eat.
Yeah. Fair enough. And most of our corn, if I understand correctly, is going to livestock. In fact.
Uh-huh. Huh. That could be. That could be.
Yeah. Anyway, but I think this whole debate is it's interesting to consider when you're a Gringex bartender who has to make decisions about the tortillas that you're bringing into your restaurant. But I think the fact of the matter is you've got this agreement that was signed amongst the nations, the USMCA, and while Mexico does have the right and is exercised that right to prevent exercising that right to prevent GMO corn from being grown in the country. The idea that they could prevent it from coming in, being sold from the USA into Mexico, I'm not sure that that's something that they can actually do without violating the agreement, which feels to me like could lead to even more disaster in terms of the economic resources or the economic resources of Mexico in relation to the USA.
It seems like that's why they're changing the Constitution to say that corn is part of the Mexican heritage. So that's probably the legal loophole that they're using to not buy the GMO corn. And I think they're right. I think it's an awesome thing that they're thinking like this. And a lot of Europe won't take any of our GMOs either.
Oh, no kidding.
And oh yeah, for sure. And it's been going on for years. And it's just like a lot of things that we deal with on a daily basis. Some scientists, they could be doing this harm to you, and others say, no, it's really doing a lot of good. And somewhere in the middle is probably the truth of it all. So, I won't not buy a product if it has a GMO label on it. But if there were two equal products, and I've got a little money, not a great deal, but if I felt like it would be better for my health, I might choose the non-GMO product. I don't always buy organic, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And I wasn't certified organic, but I did grow organically. I just never went along with the government certification. And the lady who certified me sustainable asked halfway through the process, day-long process, why aren't I going for an organic certification? And I really didn't want to get involved in the government craziness. I'm not a fan of dealing with the government, So that's the point of this. If Mexico feels, if this is just an economic thing for them, I think it's probably not in their best interest in the long run, because the regular Jose coming home from work and picking up a kilo of tortillas is going to feel the pinch. There's no question about it. And but if it's truly for their heritage and preserving everything, that's awesome. That's great for them. I believe that there's a place for both in this world, for the heritage varieties and the GMOs.
Yeah, and it makes me wonder what's going to happen if they actually are able to break the USMCA agreement and stop GMO corn from coming in. What's going to happen when they start looking at bourbon?
Well, the pricings will be better for us. Canada isn't buying it. And now it just seems like Europe won't. So we're going to get some awesome bourbon for really cheap coming up soon,
Well, then I guess we're going to have to change this to Bourbon Road Trip, this podcast, any day now, pretty soon.
How about mezcal? What's that going to do to the mezcal price?
Oh, I don't know.
Or the quantity of awesome mezcal coming up here.
Yeah, I don't even want to think about it. I'm hoping the tariffs will be a short-lived blip, and those families that are selling us beautiful spirits can keep doing that.
Right. I will say, being in Mexico, and I've been here since October, with all this craziness going on, and I don't watch TV, and it's one of the things I'm grateful for of not being back in the States. I miss a lot of the political insanity, but I will say the vibe in Mexico is the Mexicans don't have a lot to say about what's going on. My friends, a couple of them do, but nothing too serious. But the Canadians, and there's a lot of Canadians on this island, they're pretty pissed off. They really are. And I don't blame them. I don't blame them, being insulted and all that kind of stuff. And I'm not taking sides one way or another, but, I apologize for the insult about the 51st state. And we still drink our mezcal, drink our tequila and cerveza, and have a few laughs every day. So.
Oh, well, and we should all live such a life.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, well, unless you got something to add to that, Dave, I think we can call this a wrap.
That sounds like a wrap to me.
Okay.
It was nice seeing you, nice talking to you, and we'll see you maybe at the end of May.
Sounds great. Hasta pronto.
Take care, Luis. Adios.
You've been listening to Agave Road Trip, the critically acclaimed award-winning podcast that helps Gringex bartenders better understand agave spirits, and rural Mexico. We're blessed with sound engineering by Roy Sierra and a theme song performed by Gabriel Oliveira and Marco Ricos. Sign up to become a road tripper and listen to more episodes at agaveroadtrip.com. If you enjoyed this podcast, please let us know. And if you hated it, well, I'm sure you'll let us know that too. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram at Agave Road Trip. Agave Road Trip is a production of 10 Angry Pit Bulls, Inc. Agave Road Trip is powered by Simplecast. Thank you for listening to Heritage Radio Network. Heritage Radio Network is food radio supported by you. For our freshest content, subscribe to our newsletter. To subscribe to the Heritage Radio newsletter, enter your email at the bottom of our website, heritageradionetwork.org. Connect with Heritage Radio Network on Instagram and Twitter at heritage_radio. You can also find Heritage Radio Network at facebook.com/Heritage Radio Network. Heritage Radio Network is a nonprofit organization using the power of educational storytelling about food to build a more equitable, resilient food system. Heritage Radio Network couldn't do that without support from listeners like you. Become a part of the world's most innovative community today. Subscribe to the shows you like, tell your friends, and please join the Heritage Radio Network family by becoming a member. To become a member of the Heritage Radio Network, click on the beating heart of our homepage. Heritage Radio Network can become addictive. Programming you hear on Heritage Radio Network might lead you to eat, drink, and listen to more programming on Heritage Radio Network. If you drink, please do not drink and drive. Drink responsibly, drive responsibly, eat responsibly too, and listen to Heritage Radio Network responsibly. To listen to Heritage Radio Network responsibly, wear protective earbuds. While wearing protective earbuds, do not drive, do not walk either. Sit in a comfortable chair. If that comfortable chair has a hard seat, please remember to stretch every 30 minutes. If you stretch every 30 minutes, please stay within your defined stressing capacity. And consult a doctor who specializes in stretching. If you don't have a doctor, maybe Dr. Ryan Acock, the Cocktail MD, can help you out. Thanks for listening. Agave Road Trip out.